Hello everybody, welcome back to another vinyl video. I don't really got anything to talk about, just like last time. Let's just show some records. First one I got will be a couple by the same artist. This is Have You in My Wilderness by Julia Holter. If you don't know Julia Holter, she is a chamber artist, a Baroque pop artist, a composer. Uses a lot of beautiful strings, and her music can occasionally run a lot of maybe a bit ambient or experimental. This is the album that introduced me to her. She did some stuff differently with this album. A lot of the songs on here are a lot less experimental and a bit more accessible. Songs like Sea Calls Me Home and Have You in My Wilderness are songs you can literally sing along to. They're catchy. Which wasn't always the case in her previous material. But yeah, this is a wonderful album. And she is just a really singular artist in my opinion. But yeah, if you want to get into her music, I would say this is probably a good place to start. I believe the vinyl's on black, so it doesn't matter. One side of the sleeve, other side of the sleeve. But yeah, definitely check out this album. It's wonderful. Next album I'm going to show you, also by her, is Loud City Song. This is her going... you can kind of hear how she went from this to Have You in My Wilderness. There's still a few more experimental songs on here, but you can hear some of the instrumentation is a bit more easily accessible, as you can say. She was going towards Have You in My Wilderness, and you could tell through this album. A lot of the same instrumental palette. It sounds very, very nice. Very, almost jazzy sometimes. But again, chamber pop, Baroque pop, you got a lot of horns and saxophone and strings and all this stuff. It's very beautiful. Some good songs in here. The first track, World. Horns Surrounding Me, In the Green Wild, He's Running Through My Eyes. And like I said, she's a composer, and she's a fantastic one at that. And so a lot of her songs have these very amazing structures and palettes and just sounds and ideas, and it runs through her entire career, and it's amazing to see just how talented she is on the compositional level. Again, I think records are just on black. No need with that. There's the front cover. That cover. It got really banged up in transit. Look at that. That's a big seam split. But other than that, though, the records were fine, so it didn't really bother me that much. All right, and lastly, I actually have a copy of her newest album. Came out 3 days ago, actually, because I pre-ordered it. I was very excited for this. This is Aviary. This album's a fucking monster. This album is an hour and 30 minutes long, and she went from one of her most easily accessible albums to one of the most difficult albums she's ever released. And I really don't know how I feel about it yet. There's a lot of very, long-winded passages, sometimes even, jazzy passages that are just kind of melt your brain a bit and are so dreamy, and you're just wondering what the hell is going on. And then she'll kick in with some vocal passage that you can actually latch onto a bit. But there's a lot of great songs on here. I've listened through it a couple of times, but there's so much material that I need to keep listening to this just to figure out what it's doing, if I like it or not. It's such a dense fucking album. There's a lot, and it's a big packaging, really nice packaging. There's the inner gatefold. The records themselves are on clear. Show you here, but it's a nice milky looking clear here. Yeah, looks really nice. And then I guess since I pre-ordered it and got it early, I have an actual photograph. This is an actual on photo paper and everything. This was it feels like it was taken out of a Polaroid or something. And it was signed by her. I'm not sure what that edition is limited to, like what these are limited to, but it's really cool to have this. But yeah, if you want to kind of get a feel for what this album is doing, I would listen to the track Words I Heard, I Shall Love Too, the singles, and then, what's another good one? Chaitius. There's a lot of stuff I think is in Latin on this album, like a lot of the titles and stuff. So it's kind of... It's hard to read some of these song titles. There's 15 tracks on this thing. Like I said, hour and a half long. It's a fucking monster. I think there's like a booklet here. Yeah. Booklet with a bunch of photos and all the lyrics. And a lot of times the lyrics on this album are really interesting and very poetic because they're structured like this. Like they're not like you would never notice that the song is structured like this until you listen to, like, look at the lyrics. There's another one on here that they positioned all the lyrics so that as you go down, it says, if not, what does it say? If not Winter and Carson. If not Winter and Carson. Like, it says it twice. Just because of how she structured the lyrics. And you never would have gotten that if you didn't look at the lyrics. And I looked it up. I guess it's like a book by Anne Carson. But yeah, it's just like, what the... It's interesting the things she does on this album. But yeah, I think it's gonna be a while before I decide whether, like, how much I love it. Because I know I like it. I just need to figure out how much I like it. Alright. Next album I'm gonna show you. Moving on from Julie Holter. Going into another, even more experimental artist, a more interesting artist. We have Grouper. If you don't know Grouper, she is an experimental music artist, ambient artist, I guess you could say, maybe even sometimes an electronic artist. That being said, though, this is a lot different than that stuff. This is I would call it an ambient album. It's also very dreamy, quiet, psychedelic folk album. And when I say quiet, I mean really fucking quiet. A big part of her music is I think she's trying to make her music sound as quiet as possible and frail as possible, lonely. Like it's such a dark, just desolate album, and it's such an interesting listen because nothing sounds like this. No other album in the world sounds like this. The album is called Dragging a Dead Deer Up a Hill, and this is actually a picture of her when she was a child. It's a terrifying looking album cover. But yeah, it's so just insane what she does on this album. I want to show it's just on black, but I wanted to show the little labeling there because she does all of her own art and all this stuff, and I really like it. Her real name, I believe, is Liz Harris, and she really puts together some amazing stuff, and she's a singular artist, in my opinion. Drop the sleeve to the record. Yeah, I'm just such an incredible... If you like music that's dreamy, music that's very frail and quiet, you have to listen to her. She's such an incredible artist to just, like, marvel at. Next one I got is another album by her. This is The Man Who Died in His Boat. Very similar to Dragging a Dead Deer Up a Hill. Not as good, I would say. Because the way it's recorded on Dragging a Dead Deer Up a Hill, it just seems more lonely and desolate and sad and just dark. This one, on the other hand, in the contrast, is a lot of those things. It just doesn't seem as heavy as that last album. I think she uses a very similar instrumental palette, her very quiet whisper voice, her frail guitar strumming, the very lo-fi production, all that kind of stuff. But I feel like this one just doesn't capture the same magic that does. Not to say it's a bad album. It's definitely not. I just feel like it's an inferior cousin to that previous album. Again, does a lot of her own art. I love her back covers and her labeling and all this stuff, like on this one here. That's the front, and then she's got another label like that. Again, another good album to listen to. And then, this is one of her newer albums. I think there's one more she released after this. This is Ruins. This is where she started doing things a bit differently. When she first started making music, it was more ambient, quiet electronic music. As you can see with those two albums, actually right over here, those are also her, if I could actually point to them, Jesus Christ. Those two, in the frames, over there. Those are two of her albums that are more the ambient electronic stuff, and they're gorgeous. Then she moved into the psychedelic folk, just dreamy, like quiet music with the frail folk guitar and all that kind of stuff. And then from there, she kind of moved into this, which is, I guess I would call it like minimalist piano music. And it's a really gorgeous album because of mainly the way it's recorded. It's just her and piano. And it sounds like she recorded it right in her home next to an open window in the dead of night. Because every single song on here, you can just hear the sounds of like frogs and crickets and like owls and like all this stuff from like outside. And there's a song on here, I can't remember which one, but there's one where towards the end of the song, you just hear a beep, like beep, and it's not that loud, because everything on this album is quiet, but you weren't expecting it, and it scares the crap out of you every time. And I learned that beep is actually just a microwave that somebody was using when she was recording it, and she decided to leave it in because she liked it. And I just find that so interesting. And it's such an intimate album. It feels like you're just in her house with her when you're listening to this album. It's really, really a gorgeous listen. Her newest album, Grid of Points, had the same minimalist piano vibe, but the recording was not as intimate and not as, I don't know, just present. Like, it didn't feel like you were there. It felt like you just recorded this in a studio and you're just listening to it. But again, same instrumental palette, just her voice, her piano. But yeah, this is a wonderful album. And if you're not a fan of, like, how quiet this music is, chilling out and listening to this, at bare minimum, you can fall asleep to it. You might have some weird-ass dreams, but you can fall asleep to it pretty easy. It's relaxing in some sense of the word. Alright, moving on from Grouper. I've been showing a lot of newer stuff on this channel recently. I thought I'd go back, older music, one of my favorite bands, Simon and Garfunkel. This is Bridge Over Troubled Water. This is my favorite album of theirs. Has just bangers on it. Fucking bangers. Bridge Over Troubled Water, the title track. Amazing. One of my favorite songs of all time. It's got Keep the Customer Satisfied, Cecilia. It's got Baby Driver on it. Oh, so many good songs in this thing. It's such a good fucking folk rock album. Amazing songwriting on this thing. Amazing hooks, instruments, just everything. It's just so good. I love Simon and Garfunkel. If you haven't listened to Simon and Garfunkel, go and listen to Simon and Garfunkel. I'm not going to describe them. You should know who they are already. But yeah, they're one of the best folk rock groups, one of the best songwriting duos ever, period. But yeah, Bridge Over Troubled Water. Good album. Great album. And from there, we got a record I feel like people will know a bit more, Simon and Garfunkel, Sound of Silence. Obviously, Sound of Silence is an incredible track. There's so many other good songs on this. Leaves That Are Green, Kathy's song, Somewhere They Can't Find Me, April Come She Will. Whew, that is an underrated song. April Come She Will is wonderful. But yeah, Simon and Garfunkel, just listen to them. I feel like one of those bands that everybody should listen to at least once. They're amazing. Not much to say because most people should know these guys already. And last thing today, my copy of Moondance by Van Morrison. One of my all-time favorite albums. Again, just such a great mix of so many different genres and all mixed together with one incredible songwriter and one incredible voice. There's so much. There's blues, there's jazz, there's folk, there's rock. There's so much going into this album, and it's so well put together that it's almost indistinguishable apart from each other. Like they all just come together in this giant melting pot called Moondance. Really, every time I listen to this album, it puts me in such a good mood and just makes me feel so nice. I mean, listen to Into the Mystic. Just one of the most amazing, like, romantic songs ever written. It's such, like, just, it makes you feel so much. You got songs like, obviously, Moondance, everybody knows that one. Stoned Me, Crazy Love, These Dreams of You, Brand New Day. The whole album is amazing. It's not. This isn't like difficult to find or anything like that, but it's such a quality album. One of the greatest albums of all time. But yeah. All right. From there, I got nothing else. I hope you all have a wonderful day, and I will see you next time.